Have you ever seen two children pretend they're full, just so their father wouldn't feel guilty for not having enough to feed them? In a crumbling apartment where the wallpaper peeled like tired skin and the fridge echoed with silence, two twins shared not just a room, but a quiet vow. They would not ask for more, they would become more. And 20 years later, when the world finally saw what they did with their very first bonus, no one could hold back their tears. This is not just a story of hardship. It's a story of quiet power, fierce love, and the kind of loyalty that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. Every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m., the sound of keys jingling outside apartment 3B meant one thing. Dad was home. He'd opened the door with a tired smile and a bag that looked heavier with hope than with food. Inside, Liam and Lucas, twin boys aged 10, would already be seated at the chipped wooden table, school books neatly tucked away, pretending not to notice the silence in the kitchen. That Tuesday, the bag only held one carton of eggs, a half loaf of bread, and a small bottle of off-brand ketchup. "Dinner's gonna be eggs and toast again, boys," Dad said, his voice straining with cheer. Liam smiled. Lucas nodded. But when Dad turned away to the stove, Liam gently nudged his brother's knee under the table. A shared glance said everything. They'd eat half, say they were full, leave more for Dad. Their father, Raymond Hart, had taken on a second job cleaning office floors at midnight just to make rent. Ever since their mother died from a sudden stroke 2 winters ago, he'd aged twice as fast. The lines near his eyes were no longer from laughter. They were from grief, from unpaid bills, from waking up in a cold sweat, wondering if the landlord would knock again. That night, Liam tore his single slice of toast into 4 pieces, nibbled one, and pushed the rest around the plate. "So full," he said with an exaggerated yawn. Lucas followed suit. "Yeah, we got snacks at school." Raymond looked over his shoulder with a worried gaze. "Are they feeding you enough at school?" "Totally. We even traded some cookies for sandwiches." Liam lied. Their father nodded slowly. "Good. That's good." But his shoulders sank just a bit. They didn't notice. Or maybe they did, and just couldn't bear it. After the boys went to bed, curled up on opposite ends of a thin mattress, Raymond sat alone at the kitchen table, finishing their leftovers, never realizing they were never full to begin with. That was the first winter Liam and Lucas made a silent promise: we will never let him feel ashamed again. Westbridge Prep was a world away from everything they knew. The floors were polished wood, not linoleum. The cafeteria had fresh fruit, not vending machines. And students wore jackets with embroidered initials, not hand-me-downs stitched with survival. On their first day, Liam and Lucas arrived in thrifted uniforms. A kind counselor had shortened the pants and ironed out the wrinkles. Still, they looked like puzzle pieces from the wrong box. But when asked to introduce themselves, Liam simply said, "We're here to study hard." Lucas added, "We're here because someone believed in us." The class didn't laugh. They didn't applaud either. They just listened. And for the first time in a long time, the twins felt something rare: acceptance without pity. They sat side by side in every lecture, trading glances like mental high fives when a teacher asked something only one of them knew. They weren't the loudest, the flashiest, or the ones with fancy backpacks, but they were always the last to leave the library, always the first to volunteer for group work, always kind, always quiet, always pushing forward. On weekends, while others went to ski lodges or sleepovers, Liam and Lucas worked part-time at the community bookstore, not because they had to, but because they wanted to earn enough to gift their father a real winter coat, a warm one that didn't smell like ammonia and late-night buses. That winter, they pooled their earnings, walked 2 hours to the outlet mall in the snow, and bought him a black parka with fleece lining and deep pockets. They didn't leave a note. They just hung it by the door. When Raymond saw it, he froze, not because of the cold, but because of what it meant. He sat on the couch for a long time that night, the coat in his lap like a child he couldn't hold for years. He didn't say a word. But the next morning, he wore it like armor. And that was the first time the twins saw him walk a little straighter. The first time he didn't limp from the cold. The first time they felt, they had given something back. And that moment, simple, quiet, almost invisible, was more powerful than any applause, more nourishing than any full meal. It was the beginning of everything. By the time they reached their final year at Westbridge, Liam and Lucas had become legends in their quiet way. They weren't valedictorian. Though they were close, they weren't team captains. Though they cheered from the sidelines for every win, what made them unforgettable was this: they never let success make them louder than humility. One afternoon, their college counselor called them in. She held 2 large envelopes with gold crests. "Full scholarships," she said, barely holding back her emotion. "Both of you, Stanford." Raymond Hart couldn't process it at first. Stanford? He didn't even finish high school. He didn't know how to spell FAFSA. Did this mean his boys were leaving? That night, they celebrated with grocery store cake and off-brand orange soda. Liam quietly slid a printed email across the table. It was a housing confirmation, paid in full by grant money. Lucas added, "They said we can even work part-time on campus and send money home." Raymond looked at his sons, taller now, more confident, but still wearing the same gentle eyes they had as boys skipping dinner. "I never even imagined this for you," he whispered. Lucas leaned forward. "You didn't have to. You lived it for us, so we could imagine it for ourselves." The night before they flew out west, Raymond placed a folded letter into each of their bags. It read, "You gave me back my name. For years, I was just the janitor. Now, I'm Liam and Lucas's dad. And that means more than anything money could buy. Fly high. Boys, but always come home when you can." Liam cried quietly on the flight. Lucas handed him a napkin and looked out the window. The city below faded. But the promise they carried never did. They knew that the next part of the story wasn't just theirs anymore. It was their father, too. Silicon Valley moved fast. The coffee got cold before the meetings ended. Sleep was optional. And respect had a price. Paid in code, deadlines, and ideas bold enough to shake the ground. By 25, Liam and Lucas weren't just surviving there. They were thriving. Liam became a lead developer at a tech startup revolutionizing accessibility software. Lucas joined a green tech company designing solar panel solutions for low-income housing. Both had worked day and night for 3 years, rarely taking vacations, always sending a quiet portion of their pay home, always remembering every silent dinner they once shared. And then one winter, almost symbolic in its timing, it came. Their companies had just closed record-breaking funding rounds. Performance reviews glowed. Bosses handed out envelopes with subtle smiles. Inside each, a 5-figure holiday bonus. They didn't blink, didn't argue, didn't talk about what new phones to buy, didn't mention Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus or Rolex 12633 or trips to Bali, because they had already made a plan the year before. On Christmas Eve, they flew home. No announcement, no cameras, just 2 boys walking through the door of apartment 3B, now renovated, thanks to years of careful savings. But the real surprise wasn't for them. It was for Raymond. He opened the door to find his sons holding out a folder. Inside, a mortgage statement, a deed, his name. They had paid off a modest single-story house just outside the city. Quiet neighborhood, garden in the back, heated floors, no more rent, no more mopping, no more worrying if the landlord would knock again. At first, Raymond didn't speak. He just kept flipping the papers, as if the truth would change on the next page. Then he looked up and asked, "Why didn't you spend this on yourselves?" Lucas smiled. "We already did," Liam added. "You're our home. This is for us." The story might have ended there, quietly, privately, as it began, but the moment didn't stay hidden. Their childhood neighbor, Mrs. Dorsey, had watched the whole thing unfold from her porch. She posted the story online. The Hart twins bought their father a house with their first bonus years ago. They used to skip meals so he could pay rent. Today, they gave him back his dignity. The post went viral overnight. Thousands shared it. News stations picked it up. People wrote, "We need more sons like this." Others commented, "This restored my faith in family." But the twins didn't reply to any of it. In a quiet corner of their new backyard, Raymond was planting a small tree, and they were helping him dig. Sleeves rolled up, smiles soft, hearts full. It wasn't about the bonus. It never had been. It was about a promise made over cold toast and ketchup, a promise kept in full. After the housewarming weekend, life resumed. Emails, meetings, late-night deadlines. But something had shifted. It wasn't just about climbing anymore. It was about lifting. A week after their story went viral, Liam got an email from a youth shelter coordinator in Oakland. "I read about what you and your brother did." It said, "We have a few boys here who remind me of you. No one's buying them houses, but maybe someone could remind them they're seen." Liam forwarded it to Lucas with one sentence. "Ready to build something bigger?" They called it the Hart Initiative. At first, it was just a Saturday mentorship circle. 5 kids, 2 pizzas, and an old whiteboard in a borrowed library room. But word spread, and so did the vision. Soon, they expanded into coding workshops, scholarship prep, and resume clinics. Kids from neighborhoods like the one they grew up in finally had access to what they never had: guidance, connection, a way in. One day, a boy named Elijah asked, "Why are you doing this for us?" Lucas knelt beside him and said, "Because once upon a time, someone packed us lunch with their heart, and we never forgot that meal." They didn't just show up once. They kept coming, taught consistency, proved that success didn't have to forget its shadow. Corporate sponsors offered funding. News crews came calling again. But Liam and Lucas stayed out of the spotlight. When asked to pose in front of a big check, they said, "We'd rather pose with the kids." One of their quiet policies: every student who came to their programs got a warm meal. No questions asked, no form to fill, because they remembered what it felt like to study on an empty stomach. They remembered cold nights and the taste of shame, and they were done letting those feelings win. Their father, now retired and volunteering part-time at the same initiative, would sometimes tell new kids, "I used to mop floors. Now I watch my sons build bridges." And in the back of every classroom, every event, every breakthrough, there was a worn black parka hanging on a coat rack, not because anyone needed it anymore, but it reminded them where warmth begins. It wasn't meant to be a big event, just another Saturday at the Hart Initiative's community center. Folding chairs, donated cupcakes, and a slideshow stitched together the night before, a celebration of their 5th anniversary. But that morning, something changed. Liam woke up to a flurry of messages. Lucas answered a call from a woman with a warm Southern accent. "Mr. Hart," she said, "the president read about what you did. He'd like to mention your name in his address this afternoon, if that's okay." They didn't know what to say. They'd spent so long avoiding stages, ducking spotlights, deflecting praise. But that day, at exactly 2:30 p.m., the world saw them on national television, standing behind a podium draped in the flag. The President of the United States said, "In a world full of noise, some heroes whisper." Liam and Lucas Hart gave up meals so their father could pay rent, and when they made it, they made sure to feed others, not just themselves. That is what the American dream looks like when it grows from love. Back at the center, every child erupted in cheers. Raymond cried openly in front of everyone for the first time. This time, he wasn't embarrassed. This time, it was pride flooding down his cheeks. Someone handed the twins a mic. Liam looked at Lucas. Lucas nodded, and Liam said, simply, "We were never trying to go viral. We were just trying to keep a promise we made with empty plates and full hearts." Behind every viral story is a quiet moment no one sees. No likes, no shares, just a decision, a whisper, a promise. 2 boys decided their father would never feel small again, not because they owed him, but because they loved him. And that love, it became action. And that action, it became a legacy. The twins didn't build an empire. They built something far more powerful, a circle, where fathers feel honored, where sons feel seen, where no child has to say, I'm full, just to protect the dignity of the one who raised them. So if you ever wonder what to do with your success, start where you were once hungry and feed the world from there. If this story touched your heart even a little, subscribe to our channel, not just for stories like this, but for a world where more of them come true.